I want you to stop and ask yourself, what actually happens when the universe decides to just rewrite your perfect plans? I mean, we all know the feeling, right? You map out every single detail of a first date or maybe an international vacation, and then boom, chance steps in and completely throws your itinerary out the window. Well, today's case studies show us exactly what happens when those meticulously laid plans collide head-on with chaotic reality.
To quickly anchor our explainer today, we need to talk about a core concept you're probably familiar with: situational irony. Basically, it's that classic literary technique where the actual outcome of a situation is entirely different from, and often the total opposite of, what was expected or intended. Just keep this definition in the back of your mind, because both of the stories we're exploring today absolutely nail the stark contrast between what humans intend to do and the hilarious, completely unexpected reality of what actually happens. But hey, before we get lost in the narratives, let's look at the actual, literal data from our source material. These are the rating metrics for our two fictional case studies. First up, Color Me Mine. It boasts this massive 93.8% believability rating and an impressive 4.7 out of 5 overall. Really strong numbers. Then we've got Paris Reunion, which has slightly lower but still solid numbers, pulling in an irony rating of 3.6 out of 5. These metrics are fantastic to have because they really ground our fun, chaotic stories in analytical reality. It shows us exactly how readers were responding to these twists.
So let's jump straight into our first case study, Color Me Mine, or as I like to call it, the accidental vase heist. The setting is Mesa, Arizona, February 2026. We've got Caden, who used a nice, trimmed beard hiking photo to look his best on a dating app, matching with Lucy, an outdoorsy girl with curly dark hair. They agree to meet up for a first date. And honestly, the setup is beautifully mundane but totally promising. They meet at a Color Me Mine pottery studio, and I just love the specific details the author uses here. It's located in the standard everyday strip mall, literally squished right between a Chinese restaurant and a payday loan business. The plan is super simple. Pick out some ceramics, paint them, and then grab some tacos next door. Sounds foolproof, right? Well, once they get inside, they both actually choose to paint identical 12-inch flower vases. But man, the execution is vastly different. Caden's simple plan involves just drawing these horizontal pencil lines to try and keep his paint from bleeding. The story literally describes his final product as looking like it was produced in an elementary school art class. Lucy, on the other hand, just goes for it. She confidently freehands this incredible orange snake wrapped around green leaves and vines. It's strikingly elegant. I mean, she essentially creates this museum-quality masterpiece right there on a casual first date. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens later over tacos. The conversation is flowing, and Caden makes this offhand comment about his workplace, Shamrock Mortgages. He jokes about their super cringy slogan, "Your good luck lender." You know, in any normal conversation, this is just your standard self-deprecating first date banter. But since we're analyzing a story built entirely on situational irony, this seemingly throwaway detail, yeah, it becomes an absolutely vital clue. Anyway, the date ends flawlessly. They both agree to meet up again as soon as the vases are finished firing in the kiln, and they drive away literally singing in their cars. Everything is great. But then, radio silence. An entire week passes, not a single message. And worse, Lucy opens the dating app and sees that they are suddenly unmatched. Her happy expectations just immediately plummet into anger and self-doubt. She assumes she's been ghosted by a guy with the attention span of a goldfish. But as you might guess, Lucy isn't the type to just let this go, especially not when she has a museum-quality vase on the line. Let's walk through her escalating investigative process. Step 1, she goes to the studio to claim her masterpiece. Step 2, the receptionist tells her that Caden already came by and picked up both vases. And of course, the studio refuses to hand over his phone number. So, step 3, she remembers that totally cringy mortgage slogan. Step 4, she runs a quick internet search for "Your Good Luck Lender." And step 5, boom, she tracks down the exact address for Shamrock Mortgages in Mesa. This stolen piece of pottery has literally turned her into a full-on private detective. So Lucy marches right into his office, right in the middle of the workday, wearing this very flattering dress. She tracks Caden down to his cubicle, and sure enough, both vases are sitting right there on his desk. She shouts, "Hey, that's my vase!" And then she delivers this absolutely perfect, iconic line, "I came to get my vase and break your nose." But wait for the twist, because this right here brilliantly illustrates our core concept. Instead of being terrified, Caden's face morphs from pure shock to absolute excitement. Why? because the dating app actually had a glitch and unmatched them completely by accident. He didn't have her phone number, he didn't even know her last name. He had been desperately carrying those two heavy vases back and forth between his apartment and his office every single day, just praying she would be smart enough to track him down to get her pottery back. Her completely vengeful detective mission was actually exactly what he was hoping for. The whole thing ends with Lucy smiling, dropping the threat of breaking his nose, and just leaving her phone number on his business card. How great is that? Let's move to chess and see how this builds as we pivot to our second case study. Case study 2, Parisian Reunion, the Parisian Wild Goose Chase. For this story, we're treating the strip malls of Arizona for the romantic cobblestone streets of Paris. Our main characters here are Elaine and her husband Michael Lesueur. Now, the irony in this story stems directly from two vastly different travel styles. On the left side, we've got Elaine. She has dreamed of this trip since high school. I'm talking meticulous research. She brushed up on her French with Duolingo, read dozens of travel guides, and crafted this highly planned, jam-packed itinerary to maximize every single minute in Paris. And on the right side, we have her daughter, Janice. Janice is a newlywed, traveling with her in-laws on an organized group tour. She has a total go-with-the-flow attitude, mostly because her entire schedule is dictated by a French tour guide. Well, by a massive coincidence, they find out they're in Paris on the exact same day. And of course, they desperately want to meet up. What follows is a completely chaotic, honestly exhausting timeline of misconnections all across the Parisian subway system. Elaine completely sacrifices her meticulous itinerary just to chase her daughter's text messages around the city. In the morning, Elaine and Michael literally skip a tour of Notre Dame to rush over to the Eiffel Tower. They miss Janice there, so they hop back on the subway and race to the Arc de Triomphe. Missed her again. By the afternoon, they're told to wait at the Sacré-Cœur church. And by dusk, they're just aimlessly wandering around the Louvre. They are zipping all over the city like maniacs and completely missing the inside of every world-famous monument they specifically came to see. And here is the incredibly relatable, kind of hilarious failure that ends up derailing the entire afternoon. While they're waiting at the Sacred Court Church, jet lag hits them like an absolute ton of bricks. They sit down on the grass just to rest for a second, and both Elaine and Michael accidentally fall fast asleep in the warm afternoon sun. Because her phone was tucked away safely in a fanny pack, Elaine sleeps right through multiple text updates from Janice saying the tour bus hit traffic and they were moving on to the Louvre. Seriously, taking a quick nap completely blew up their best chance to finally meet up. Finally, at dusk, they managed to track Janice down at her last scheduled activity of the day, a tourist cooking class. They walk in, completely exhausted, only to find Janice wearing a chef's hat and apron, happily making savory crepes. During this big emotional reunion, they're introduced to Anne-Marie, the French tour guide. Elaine and Michael, who have just spent the entire day navigating malfunctioning subway ticket dispensers and walking miles upon miles, admit to the guide that they didn't actually get to go inside a single monument today. So the crucial point is the actual distance Elaine and her daughter live from each other back in America. Anne-Marie, the tour guide, asks them where they live, totally assuming they must be from opposite coasts of the United States to justify this frantic cross-city scramble. But Elaine replies that they live practically in the same town. They live a mere 25 miles apart. Oh, and it gets even better. When Anne-Marie asks how long it had been since they last saw each other before flying all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, the answer is 4. 4 days. It had literally only been 4 days since Elaine last saw her daughter. Which leads directly to this absolutely wonderful quote from Anne-Marie. "And you interrupted all your plans just to see her again? You must love your daughter very much." It's a really sweet but highly ironic observation. Think about it. Elaine had spent months reading guides, practicing French on her phone, and building this once-in-a-lifetime Paris itinerary, only to blow the entire thing up to reunite with someone she saw less than a week ago and who lives a half-hour drive away. Okay, let's bring this all together into our synthesis and talk about exactly why these twists work so well. We've looked at the data, we've walked through the narratives, so now let's explore why these stories scored so highly on the irony scale and what we can actually learn from them. The true anatomy of the irony in both of these stories is rooted in our human illusion of control. Both stories feature characters engaging in pretty meticulous planning, only to have it get utterly derailed by sheer chance. I mean, Caden and Lucy tried to have a standard, highly structured first date, but a dating app glitch transformed it into a pseudo-heist that basically forced Lucy to prove how much she cared by tracking them down. Elaine created a masterfully curated Paris itinerary, but sacrificed it all for a chaotic subway chase. These stories brilliantly illustrate that true situational irony requires us to try our absolute hardest to plan things out, only to have serendipity completely take the wheel. The very best moments, The ones that turn into lasting memories and genuinely great stories almost always happen when the universe steps in and rewrites the script for us. Which leaves me with a final, slightly provocative question for you. When has an abandoned plan led to your own perfect, ironic memory? Seriously, think about a time when everything went wrong, only for it to turn out exactly right. Thank you so much for joining me to explore these incredibly fun stories today. I hope you've enjoyed breaking down the anatomy of situational irony with me. Keep embracing the unexpected, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.